Hey, it's Dr. Tyran Mincey. I'm happy to be back here with you. Those of you who joined me some time ago when we were talking about the various aspects of COVID-19, I want to share with you today some of the CDC's data that I've been tracking. I've been on the lecture circuit for quite some time, and I think it's important to realize that there's a pattern here that has been here all along that doesn't have anything to do with vaccinations. And so check it out for yourself. You can also find this data on the CDC's website. I don't think it's on the front page anymore. It's kind of buried. And the information we're going to provide as far as variants are concerned, you can easily obtain by going to nextstrain.org, which is a place that is used to look at the different strains of COVID-19 and how they might be influencing various people. So the first thing is we're going to go over this chart. Very important here. In May of 2020, according to the CDC website, with the number of deaths that were present in terms of COVID-19, at that time was about 5%. I listened, I watched. We didn't have a vaccine at that point in time, and several months later, I had to deliver another lecture at a seminar, and so did some research again and went to the CDC's website and pulled up the information, and at that time, the death rate was at 2.89%. Keep in mind that this is without any intervention, with the exception of some of the masking and the lockdowns. In December of 2020, I had another presentation that I had to do. So again, I looked at the information. And what I saw there was very interesting. I saw that the death rate had dropped down to 1.69%. Now, the purpose of any type of activity that would impact our freedoms, or an activity that would be preventative, like a vaccine, by definition, well, the definition used to be that a vaccine would prevent illness, according to the World Health Organization and the CDC. Recently, the definition has been changed so that it fit the vaccine that is currently, or the shot that is currently offered that may not really be a vaccine. At any rate, no matter what the definition is, without any type of shot present, the death rate went down to 1.69%. And at this date in December, that was when the COVID-19 vaccines, the shots, were introduced. So these shots were introduced when the death rate had dropped down to 1.69%. The purpose of doing an intervention is to prevent death. So I don't understand, and maybe an expert who's out there could tell me why we would intervene with this kind of trend going down. My question has always been, do you need an intervention for a line that's going down that steeply? Because the idea is we want to prevent deaths. Well, if we're preventing, do we need to prevent deaths if something has gone down to 1.69%? And 80% of those deaths have been people who have been at life expectancy. It's a really good question to think with. So is there truly a problem? And now, January 21, all the way to date, with the introduction of the vaccine, the death rate went up to just under, what's 1.79% roughly, and that 1.79% stayed there until now. It kind of wobbles back and forth, 1.7, 1.8, 1.7, 1.8. So there's a word that I want to share with you. It's called endemic. That means something is part of sort of our culture, kind of like the flu or the common cold. These things are endemic. They are there. And even something like vaccinating everybody for it is probably not likely to get rid of it. COVID-19 virus is endemic. Now, that brings us to the conversation about variants. And you can go to nextstrain.org, as I mentioned before, and you can learn about variants. And what's really interesting about this idea of variants is I do hear reports about the Delta variant, which has been around since the beginning. I went to nextstrain.org when we first started with the lockdowns, and the Delta variant was already identified there, along with almost 200 other variants as possibilities. And it's a scary piece of information if you don't have other data. So that's the problem. We always talk about having part of the story is very dangerous. Or if you talk about, and we often hear when we're growing up, how scary it is to have a little bit of data. If you only know a little bit of the picture, it seems kind of dangerous. If you knew there were 200 different types of variants, and that the natural tendency of a virus as it multiplies, and this is a very holistic viewpoint, that is my area of expertise. In nature, viruses want to preserve the host. Therefore, they get weaker, not stronger. The graph supports that idea. The number of deaths was declining and has stayed the same. So the various talk about variants, and I like it because America's frontline doctors calls them scariants, that's just the purpose. I couldn't find very many articles that talked about deaths. So please, if you're out there and you have some literature that's scientific and you see that, let me know the percentage of deaths that's been documented due to the Delta variant. Lots of cases, yes. But the issue is, and the reason why we would do a vaccine and make it mandatory is to prevent further deaths. At least that's what I thought. Therefore, we need to look at this in different ways. It doesn't really matter what the variant is. The actions you will take are outlined in other videos that I've put up here, and they are the actions that let you take advantage of the inborn and innate abilities that your body has to fight off viruses. Remember, a very small portion of people, 6%, died, unfortunately, of COVID-19, and even that number is arguable, but that's the number that was on the CDC's website. So that's according to the CDC, but that's 6%. 94% of people got the infection and lived. So the likelihood that one would die, especially if they're under 65, is very low, regardless of the variant. And I think that's very important to realize because this graph speaks to it, because this graph was done when many other variants had already been identified, and the numbers are still very close to this to date. Some more data for you to consider as we go through, and many of us fight for our freedoms, fight against human rights violations, fight against tyranny. I encourage you to stand up, speak up, and talk about facts such as this, not propaganda, and help people understand that maybe this whole thing has been very much exaggerated. While we need to take best practices and do the best things to be sanitary and keep ourselves clean, that's not a problem. But the mandates need to stop. The guilting needs to stop. The factioning needs to stop. The treating people in apartheid-like fashion needs to stop. We need to reflect on and be tolerant of one another's views. And for those people who see this curve and feel like they still need to be vaccinated, okay, I get it. But for those who see this curve and think there's no need for vaccination, okay, I get it. In either case, everyone should have the freedom to choose. And that is supposed to be a fundamental freedom that's guaranteed to us. Free and equal, right? It's a human right. I'm Dr. Tyrone Mincey. I'm glad I was able to share with you the COVID-19 update and the variants. And if you want more information on exactly what you can do, see my other videos where we talk about how to boost your immune system. Because regardless of the variant, I want you to know There's an immune system inside. Peace.